Can I just start before I get to some of the substance of what's going on in your great city and ask you, what has this been like for you? What's the experience been like? How have you been holding up?
Well, it's been very sad and traumatic to have people come into our city to do the ICE raids with a population that has memories of the first administration and memories of kids being afraid to go to school and parents being afraid to go to work. And all that fear is back now. We don't know how long the raids are going to last. We don't know when and where they're going to take place. We don't know the nature of them. But one thing we're sure about is that the original goal that was put out by the administration was hardened criminals, drug dealers, and gang members. And it's hard pressed to see the raids that have taken place as any of those individuals fall into that category. Now, given that there are hundreds, maybe there's a couple that do. But that is not the nature of what we are seeing. We're seeing people being chased in parking lots, people being pulled aside at swap meets, people being at work sites like a Home Depot where they're day laborers who go in and look for a day's work at a time. And it just doesn't fall into what the administration said they were going to do. So you do have a sense of fear and terror in the city that was just unwarranted. And then there have been protests, and the protests, there has been vandalism, there has been some violence. But given that we are a city of 500 square miles, the protests have been in about 5 blocks that maybe constitute 1 or 2 square miles. And so that is not, what the picture is being painted in the world, in the city.
So you're saying it's not an invasion, it's not a rebellion,
Well, I will tell you
sufficient
it
to
is.
warrant the calling out of the Marines and the National Guard.
Well, it is an invasion. We were invaded by the National Guard and the Marines, but not by Angelenos. We weren't invaded by our own people. And we are a city of immigrants, and we've always stood for a city that has welcomed people. And if you're here, you're here. But the idea, I mean, some of the people that have been detained have been in the country for 20 years. You have people that are being detained who go and show up for their immigration appointment. They're lawfully here. Once a year, they have to go in and report to the immigration office. They have been detained. So, how does that fall into what the administration said they were going to do? And that leads to a sense of fear and terror around the whole city. So you have shopping centers where nobody is there. You have restaurants where people are not customers are afraid to go in. It has had a huge impact on the economy in our city. And we have an economy that is dependent on immigrant labor. We have some sectors of the economy that the majority of the workforce are immigrants.
What's the situation with respect to the protests? Is it winding down? Will it be indefinite? Are the crowds smaller? Is the violence lessened? I think you had a curfew at one point, and the curfew
Right.
has either been changed or withdrawn. How would you describe the state of affairs at this moment?
Well, I will tell you that the protest started the day of the raids. Prior to that, everything in this city was calm. The largest protest, of course, was the protest that took place around the country, the No King's Day
Yeah.
protest. Now, because of the raids, I'm sure tens of thousands of people were added to that Saturday protest. At the end of the protest, there was some violence. 5 people were arrested, though. 30,000 people were downtown. 5 people were arrested. I did institute a curfew a week from Monday, and I lifted it last night because everything has been peaceful in the city. On Monday, we had protests, 100, 200 people. Yesterday, there were protests, maybe 100 people. How does that warrant thousands of federalized National Guard? How does that warrant a couple of thousand Marines being here somewhere in the region? I think about the men and women that serve our country, and I feel like they're being misused right now. They're like a prop in a play.
Yeah.
And I think that is so unfair. I think that Angelenos who are not connected to the military need to think about the men and women that are pulled away from their workplace, pulled away from school, pulled away from their families. For what? They don't even have proper accommodations for them. So you've seen pictures of them sleeping in buildings. I don't know who's feeding them. And this is just so sad. It's such a misuse of power. And it was just so unnecessary. Nothing was happening here.
Given that things are getting calmer, is there a timetable that you're aware of for the withdrawal of the National Guard or the Marines, or are you stepping up your calls for the removal?
Well, that's the problem is no one knows.
Right.
So we are a city that is functioning and trying to govern by rumor. And that creates, a great difficulty. We've heard rumors that they're going to last for 30 days. I've heard rumors that the troops are going to be here 60 days. The bottom line is that we don't know.
But why rumors? Are you able to call the president or someone in the White House? Do you have a direct line of communication to somebody in the
Well,
federal
yes,
government?
I did put in a request for a direct call, so we will see. Now the irony is that, the first few months of the year when we were going through the wildfires, the administration was extremely supportive, and one of the reasons why the recovery and rebuilding has been going along so fast. Now, if you've lost your house, it doesn't matter how fast it's going if you're not back in your house. So
Yeah,
I'm just talking about in terms of the timetable in comparison to other fires.
yeah.
So here on the one hand, I'm saying, give credit where credit's due. On the other hand, then one morning I wake up to find out there's raids taking place and people are terrified.
May I ask, Madam Mayor, when you asked for that phone call with the president and how long it's been?
Um, how long? I think almost a week, I believe.
You've been waiting for a call back from the president of the United States for a week, given everything that's
hmm
going on.
hmm
Have you
I think
called
it's been
back?
about.
And have you been told anything
Yes.
about why he's not calling you? He's
No,
pretty
no.
adept at using the phone.
Although I will continue to call. I imagine that part of it is because of what's going on with the governor and the lawsuit, but I actually don't know.
You mentioned the lawsuit. Has the city of Los Angeles considered in any way filing any kind of lawsuit or enjoining legal forces with the governor?
Yes, in Los Angeles, we have an independent elected city attorney, and I know that that is being evaluated now, and of course, in close collaboration and communication with Sacramento.
Speaking of laws being proposed or being passed, I understand there's a law that would outlaw the wearing of masks by federal agents when they're performing their
Right.
duties. Do you have any sense or understanding of the constitutionality or the viability of that law?
I don't. I will tell you that that's a law that is making its way through the
Yeah,
state legislature. I know that. But the question I would have is that even if the law is passed and the governor signs it, what authority does the state have if it's a federal intervention? But
yeah,
I do have to tell you, and I know you've seen these pictures and the fact that it's terrifying to
yeah,
people when you see folks all masked up. How do you know who they are?
yeah.
I mean, we had an assassination of two elected officials in Minnesota, and the guy was disguised as a police officer. There have been a lot of reports, now not in Los Angeles so far, but there have been a lot of reports of people impersonating ICE. And so, if everybody is masked up, what is the accountability there? And then at this point in time, we have multiple agencies here. So, you have the Marines, you have the Federalized National Guard, you have the Federal Protective Services, you have the sheriffs, you have LAPD, you have surrounding police departments. Our county has 88 cities in it. LA County is 10 million people. Our
Right.
population is larger than 40 states.
Yeah,
So, a lot of
it's
land, a
big.
lot of territory, a lot of confusion that was unnecessary.
The president, while he's not been calling you back, has made, depending on your perspective, threats or promises to do more of this kind of thing in what he calls sanctuary cities. Do you have any advice to your fellow mayors of such cities around the country and how to deal with, the protests, how to deal with the raids, and how to deal with the president?
Well, I mean, I think the first job of any mayor is to protect their people, to protect the residents of their city, and so we have to stand strong in doing that. And I think we have to push back, and our only vehicle in which to push back is the judiciary. That is, if we still have three co-equal branches of government.
Yeah. Any lessons learned from this experience? If there are another wave of protests in the future and concurrent raids, is there anything you would do differently?
Well, again, I mean, it is not that unusual for there to be a mass protest and some
No,
challenges along the way.
there's not.
What never happened here was massive civil unrest. It was never citywide. And I think it's important that, mayors get the truth out. I mean, it was important for us to literally show a map of Los Angeles and say this dot here are the 5 blocks where protests are happening. So no matter what you see on national TV, it is not a citywide problem. Most Angelenos know something is going on if they've watched the news, but might not even know where it is.
So this is perhaps a crazy question, but not crazy given the circumstances we find ourselves in and the examples of what I'm about to describe in a moment. One of the United States senators from California, Senator Padilla, was, as everyone has seen, unless they've been under a rock, uh, forcibly ejected from a room, brought to the ground, handcuffed with great indignity, even though he's a sitting United States senator performing his duty and function as a senator. So my crazy question is, do you have to worry about being interfered with or even being arrested in doing your own job by federal agents? And have you discussed it with your staff? If you are at a location where there are federal agents, have you thought about that? Have you anticipated that? Have you planned for that?
Well, let me just say that Senator Padilla was escorted in the building by FBI agents. I don't think if he was some random person that would happen.
Yep.
The secretary was in Los Angeles. She arrived the night before. I don't know if she's ever been here before. She was here for the morning. And you don't take the time to know who the senator of your state is, the state that you want to take control over. So I have not been worried. I do feel very safe in my own city. And I do feel there's a lot of people looking out for me. I do know that, I received a letter from the House Oversight Committee that now they're on the hunt for who is paying for the quote unquote rioters.
Right.
And so they want me to give them all of this information that doesn't exist. And so I see what is happening here. And I feel like they want to pin something on someone to shift the focus away from the White House, which is where it all started. And so I do not feel unsafe, though, in my own city.
Have you thought as a precaution to send Christy Nome your picture that so that she knows who
Christy
you are?
Nome, Christy Nome and I spent 10 years together in the House of
Right.
Representatives. I have said I don't
Yeah.
recognize her anymore, and I am referring to her actions. But if Christy Nome walked in the room, we would know each other.
Right. I still might send her a picture. People, people's memories, attitudes, cognitive functions change. It seems from time to time with these folks. Is
Yes.
there anything else I know you have to go. You have
Yes.
so many things you have to do. Final question: do you have a message for the rest of the country with respect to how these immigration raids are being carried out and how people should feel about these things and what they should do if they feel strongly about these things?
Yes, let me just take a minute to paint a picture. So
Yeah.
Sunday was Father's Day. There were missing fathers in Los Angeles. There were kids, there were spouses, there were family members who don't know where their fathers are because they were taken. And they have not been allowed legal counsel. They have not been allowed contact with their families. And if everybody could just think about that for a minute, what it would mean if your spouse went to work one day, he didn't come home and you have no idea who he is, where he is, but you know that the place was raided. So the human toll and impact to the children, which I believe could lead to lifelong trauma of when my father or mother or sister or brother goes to school or work, maybe I'll never see them again. And then I want you to think about our troops who are protecting us from foreign adversaries. Why are they being used here as a political stunt? We've taken them away from their families, away from their jobs, away from their education to participate in, I don't know, a reality TV show. I'm not really sure. But I do think that people need to keep in mind the human toll, the economic toll, the political consequences of what we are going through in this city because it has implications for the nation. Los Angeles doesn't want to be a laboratory experiment, and we don't want any other city to be an experiment either. Thank you.
Well, I'm from New York, and we'll see what happens here. Good luck to you, Mayor Bash. Thank you for spending time. And now get
Thank you.
back to work.
Love
Okay,
you.
thanks so much.
I will.
Thanks everyone for joining.
All right.